welcome to the With Clarity and Purpose podcast with your host, Yanet Borrego. Each week, I bring you an inspiring person or message to empower you to live life on your terms so you can be who you want to be, do what you are meant to do, and have the life you deserve to have. We will provide you with practical and cutting-edge approaches to continue getting clarity and direction on your path, mastering your mindset, and gaining confidence to tap into your inner wisdom so you can live on purpose. So Lynsey, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
I so appreciate you, everyone. Lynsey is a brand strategist, and she's the one that helped me build my brand, which I use every single day. So I'm super appreciative.
Oh, thank you for trusting me with your brand, baby.
Yeah.
I know that is it's such a big deal to take the leap into entrepreneurship and then to say, okay, here is my vision for my business. Please help me bring it to life. I know that is a very vulnerable, task. So I just thank you for trusting me with it.
Thank you. And I love that you brought that up, because a lot of the questions today and a lot of the experience I want you to share in your story is about entrepreneurship. So
awesome.
Can't wait. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's get to it. The first
Awesome.
thing, tell me more about yourself. Tell me, were you born here? Tell me your background. What did you study?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am from Houston, born and raised. Technically, I was born in Houston, but grew up mostly in the Missouri City, Sugarland area.
Nice.
And then went to college at Texas Tech, and I studied communication design, which is just a fancy word for graphic design,
Cool.
and photography as well. So I've got, I guess, a multi-creative, background. And then I came back to Houston after college and have been here ever since.
I
So,
love that. And I
Yeah.
see that even what you studied is very aligned with what you do today.
oh yeah. I mean, it's so funny. There's a lot of people who will study business and then go into something completely different, or study, history and they're a lawyer, which I guess part of that makes sense. But
Yeah.
I knew very early on that I wanted to be in a creative field, and graphic design, I think, really spoke to me. And so I pursued that as steadily as I could, and I still am doing graphic design today. So I know that's not the case for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I study engineering and now I'm doing coaching. So
Right.
totally.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes life takes us down a winding path,
I love it.
Yeah.
So you said from earlier on in your life, you knew you wanted to do something creative.
Yes.
How did you know? How did you get that clarity?
Oh my goodness. So many different things.
Go.
Oh man. Well, I feel like I had always had creativity in my life. My mom is an interior designer, and we were always encouraged and inspired to rearrange our rooms and paint and be messy. And I hoarded magazines because I was really drawn to ad layouts, which is weird, nerdy stuff that you don't think a middle schooler likes the layout of a magazine.
Yeah.
Of course we love it for the quizzes, right? But,
Yes.
for 17 magazine or whatever, but I just loved the typography and, color theory. And I don't know, I was just always drawn to something visual. I was also in the marching band in high school, so I just loved anything that had a creative outlet. And interior design was, I think, kind of a hobby passion of mine, because I could see that was really my mom's gift.
Yeah.
But I felt like I had a different skill set, but I felt that creative energy from her, and it was always really spurred on in our household. My dad likes to say that I got my creativity from him, but he's a lawyer. And he's like, you didn't get it from your mom, the
You're
designer.
You're creative in that also.
He's like, I gifted that to you, Yeah. So, I mean, I think it took me a while to understand what graphic design was. And it still can be a whole host of different mediums, from logo design, which is what I do, to editorial layouts, or even product design for, a big brand, or presentation design, or a whole host of different things. But I just knew that I needed to do something with a creative visual medium, and it found me pretty early on. So.
I know. So tell me more about it. So you went to school, you studied that. What happened after that with your career?
Oh my gosh, so many twists and turns. I will say that it took me until I was in the middle of my freshman year. So this was like fall semester. I just got into college. I started out as a photography major because I didn't quite understand the difference between advertising, marketing, and graphic design. And the communication school at Texas Tech had advertising, marketing, photography, journalism. And I guess that's where I thought I needed to be, was in the advertising photography realm, because that's what I thought was the visual medium of graphic design. I was very wrong about that. They are very they're interconnected, but the actual graphic design portion, which is more of the visual arts versus the strategy side, which is funny now because I love strategy. But the root of visual design was actually in the School of Art.
Wow.
So I started as a photography major, told myself I'm never going to photograph weddings. I ended up photographing 50 to 60 weddings in my life. You just kind of say the things that you're like, I'm never going to do that. And then
you do it.
That is ultimately what ends up happening. Yeah. It was wonderful. I love all my wedding clients. But I decided after my, first semester, I was like, this is wonderful. And I think I do want to really study photography, but it's not what I'm 100% passionate about. I really want to learn how to design logos and how to create with type and learn about color. And so I went to my advisor and said, okay, this is really what I want to do with my life. And I think it took me that moment of being in the wrong major for me to have that sense of clarity. This is not what my purpose is. And it was a really great learning curve for me. I really love photography as a medium, and I still photograph for my clients all the time, brand photos, things that we could use for their graphic design pieces that we work on. But my heart was really in design. I just didn't know that it wasn't advertising or it wasn't marketing in the educational sense. So I went to my advisor and they were like, you need to go to the other school, the School of Art. It's on the other side of campus. You need to shift your degree over there. And the graphic design program was a 4-year program where you have to actually get accepted into the School of Graphic Design before you can continue on. So I basically took this risk and I said, okay, sophomore year, I'm going to take all the classes that I need to apply to get into this program. And then it was my, spring semester, sophomore year. So I'd already been in school for 4 semesters. Wow. Was when I took this, this big risk to hopefully interview and be accepted into this program. And they only accepted half of the students. So 60 applied, 30 got in.
Wow.
My parents were like, what are you doing? We've already gotten you of, 3 semesters of college. Why are you changing your major? What is it that you're doing? And of course they're very supportive, but they just didn't quite understand why I was taking this unnecessary risk.
And in that situation that you feel that you're aligned with what you want, and then there may be other people around you say, what are you doing, Lynsey?
Yes.
What strengthened your decision to continue pursuing what you wanted?
Oh my gosh. I knew in my my gut and my soul that this is what I needed to pursue. And I of course everyone around me was supportive, but they didn't really understand what graphic design was. I think with photography, you could take a picture and you can either print it out or show it to someone on a screen, and they're like, oh, okay, I see that you took this photo.
It's more concrete.
Yeah, it is. It's a very cause and effect medium. I took this picture, here's the photo. But with graphic design, a lot of it is very conceptual. So I'm sketching, but that sketch is not the ultimate design. I'm sketching and I'm thinking about the concepts, and I'm learning how to take, a communication strategy, like goals for your business, and then transform that into visuals that communicate those goals for your business. But it's really kind of hard to understand until you see that, end result, which could take weeks or months. So my mom's like, why are we paying for another year of school? What are we doing? But I just had this gut feeling like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be. And I saw the work that the graphic design students were producing and the jobs that they were getting. And I said, yes, that is what I want to do.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And one of the things that I love is that you were not scared to experiment and take action. Because often we believe that clarity is this thing that comes to us and now we know our whole journey.
Right.
But it's not until
I wish that was the case.
Me too, girl. And it's not until you go here and maybe you realize this is not the way, and then you go another way, and then you experiment. Until you, by trial and error, you get to where you want to be.
Absolutely.
Is that what you experienced?
Yes, absolutely. And I do feel like, now I'm, probably 15 years removed from that decision, which feels weird to say, but I am about 15 years removed, and I feel like it's almost more difficult to take those risks as you get older because there's more financial responsibility that you have, or other, very close relationships in your life that you're like, okay, well, I've been in this job for 10 years, or I've known this way of living or this career for so long. Now I'm kind of afraid to take those risks, where I feel like in college, the world felt really wide and open for me. And so, that's something that I would really love to continue to tap into, is my 20-year-old self or my 19-year-old self is like, okay, take those risks. It paid off for you, especially if you know that in your gut, this is what you're meant to do. And even if you don't know that's what you're meant to do, but you have this kind of inkling, okay, I want to explore podcasting. I want to explore the side hustle. I want to explore taking every Friday off, whatever it is that you think is going to make you happy. Just try it. I'm telling this for myself so that I could watch this back later and just say, okay, Lynsey, you're telling yourself what you need to do.
Yes.
Sometimes it's hard when you've got more roots in the ground. You're like, okay, I've been in this environment for a while. This feels steady. But I'm still not quite certain about what that next move is. So,
it is normal. Like you said, it can be scary as you get more comfortable and you stabilize yourself in a place. As you know, after 8 years of a corporate career, I took a decision to start as a full-time coach, and it was scary.
It was very scary
in every sense, what people might think on the financial sense. And at the same time, we do have one life, right? So what are we gonna do with this life?
Exactly.
And I love that. Even if you're afraid, you're trying to bring up your 90-year-old mindset into now and see what is there out there for me. What is the next step?
Exactly.
I love that.
Exactly.
That is so cool.
I'm so proud of anyone who's able to take a little bit of a leap. It doesn't have to be jumping off the cliff into the deep end. It could just be putting your feet in the kiddie pool and say, okay, what does this look like if I just do this for an hour a week or 30 minutes a day, and just bring in some of those things that really speak to you.
Taking action and experimenting.
You can always jump off the cliff, but like you said, you were in, this career for 8 years, and you have been doing this, coaching on the side for a while, and you're building up your confidence, and you're like, okay, this is really what's bringing me joy. How can I bring that more into my life? And you're like, okay, maybe we're at a turning point where you're like, okay, I need to make this my full-time gig for at least 6 months to a year to see what the payoff would be.
I love that you said that. And Lynsey, after graduating, because right now you're an entrepreneur, and you run your own Lynsey Creative.
Yes, I do.
Brand and firm and everything. Right. Were you always an entrepreneur after graduating from school, or is that something that you evolved into being?
Oh, yes and yes.
You're like, I know. Always
I know. I definitely have taken some full-time entrepreneurship time, and then also side hustling while working for somebody else, and also sometimes just working for somebody else.
I love it.
So the short end of the very long story is right when I graduated, it was the height of the 2008, 2009 recession, the housing market crash, all of it. So getting a job in that market was pretty abysmal, and I'm sure most other millennials out there would be able to tell you the same thing.
That's true.
So I of course, I don't feel like I had the confidence right out of school to just say, okay, I know everything that I need to know about starting my own business. So I was photographing weddings for friends as, people were getting married out of college. And that was really something that I was having fun with. But I knew, like I told you before, I didn't want to photograph weddings all the time. So I did that to, just kind of keep my skills sharp, of course, have a really good fun memory with my friends. But that wasn't really my core passion. So right after school, I ended up working for another small company. It was a fine art company that needed an in-house graphic designer. So I worked there. And really the company was run by an entrepreneur. There were maybe 7 employees at any given time. And I felt like I learned a lot, just by being right next to someone who was building his dream company. And I will say that I'm very fortunate that both of my parents are entrepreneurs. My dad is a lawyer and my mom is an interior designer, and they've both been doing their own thing for longer than I've been alive.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah. So I felt like I also grew up in an environment where entrepreneurship was for me the norm, where I know that is not necessarily the norm for the majority of people. Yeah. So I'd always, I think, had this entrepreneurial spirit within me because I could see my 2 main influences in my life had been doing this for their whole career. So that had always been in the back of my mind. Well, more like the forefront of my mind.
In front of you.
I'm like, okay, one day, whatever this business is, I think I actually started out with Lynsey Photography. And then I was like, no, we're not going to do that. So then I changed it to Lynsey Design. I'm like, that's great, but it's still a little limiting. Yeah. So then I changed it to Lynsey Creative because if I wanted to go into anything else, I could under the creative umbrella. And I've been Lynsey Creative ever since. But I feel like I had always done a few things on the side while I was working for other people. There came a moment when I was working at that fine art studio that I felt like, okay, maybe I'm ready to spread my wings and fly off the cliff. And so I did.
How did you know that moment? What was for you the thing that said, now it's...
Well, I feel like a lot of times you're almost pushed into a corner.
Yeah.
With maybe the environment at work is not ideal. Yeah. You're working too much and you're underpaid or you're undervalued. And you're like, this is not a sustainable job for me. I feel like I could, take the time and the energy that I'm putting into someone else's career, someone else's, business, and put that into my own. And that's what happened in this particular instance. Actually, it's what happened when I quit both my jobs. I realized it happened here at the fine art studio. And then a couple of years later, I'd actually applied and worked for a graphic design agency here in Houston, worked there for a little over 3 years, moved into a leadership position. And at that point, we had lost one of our biggest clients and the environment at work had kind of shifted. Yeah. And I realized, I think it's time to take that risk again and do my own thing. So I had always, I feel like, gravitated towards working for somebody when I felt like I didn't have all the skill sets or the clarity that I needed to support myself.
Got it.
So when I was first out of school, I was like, I don't think I'm quite ready to like do this whole thing myself. Had no idea about how to do any accounting or take payments or invoice clients.
Yeah,
that was just so foreign, right? I had learned all of my skill set for like the tangible tools that I needed. I learned how to, design, but I didn't learn how to run a business.
Yeah.
So I felt like I needed to work for someone who was running a business, and then I could at least absorb a lot of that, how to run a client meeting, how to write proposals, and just kind of absorb the things that, I probably could have learned if I had studied in business, but I really, didn't have any of that experience. And then of course I feel like there was always a pressure point, like, okay, there's something in my gut that's telling me this is no longer the right job for me. And I'd saved up enough money to make like, okay, this is a financially less risky decision. We're not like totally going broke here, but I saved up enough, to quit that first job and just try to make it on my own. And I was taking on every single project that I could: wedding photography, baby photography, designing invitations for people's events, designing logos and books and posters and t-shirts.
Bring it on. I'll do it.
Lynsey Creative does everything.
Wow, that is so interesting. Yeah. So you have had instances where you have worked with someone, and a couple of times that you have worked for yourself, like now.
Yes.
What would you say have been the big differences for you? And why at the end? And of course, this is not the end. You can change your mind in the future,
right.
But why is being an entrepreneur the best decision for you in the existing moment?
Yeah, that's a hard question, but I feel like a very thoughtful one. So I feel like I have a lot more control over the work that I'm able to produce.
Nice.
And the life that I want to live, which is also really hard because I can often get into this trap of, okay, well, you're a business, not necessarily an entrepreneur, and businesses work 9 to 5. So then I kind of put myself in this like unrealistic box of, okay, you have to be on call for your clients 9 to 5. Well, that's not true.
Yeah.
You're a business owner and you have made this life choice to run your business and your life in a way that suits you and your clients, So there's always kind of that, like, I don't know. It's like when you are in corporate, you want to quit your job and work for yourself. And when you work for yourself and it gets really hard, you're like, can I just go get a job somewhere?
I know, right? And it's funny because like I feel now having a business, there is no, there is not like a schedule for me. Like I end up working Saturday, Sunday from 6 to 8 p.m.
Yeah.
And I do have flexibility, right?
Right.
So if I want to walk or run or go to the store or whatever,
exactly.
Like I own my time.
Exactly.
So it's definitely an art on how to balance everything out when you're the one running the show.
Right. I feel like it's a test in willpower,
and
not only to like to make your time, your own, but also to protect your time.
Yes.
And so, to be able to set those boundaries, with your clients and with yourself. Like, okay, I'm not going to work on the weekends, or maybe this weekend I have to hustle because I'm about to go on vacation. You have that flexibility. And I feel like with being an entrepreneur, there's so much risk that's on your shoulders that the first couple of years can feel really hard. Because you're trying to, get your clients, you're trying to attract clients first, figure out your process. And I feel like I've heard this from a lot of entrepreneurs, especially in the creative space, but that's kind of where I live. Is just with, other designers and creatives. But I feel like in year 3 of owning my business, and this was when I was doing this like full time, and I've actually been like on my own full time since 2015 at this point. So I've like had little pit stops, I like had a pit stop in, 2011. And then in 2008, I did a little bit of Lynsey Creative or Lynsey Photography, whatever the business was called at that point. But, it's actually been 6 years, since I quit my last job. So where was I heading with this? Oh, in the first 1 to 2 years, everything feels hard. I feel like you're trying to understand how to do your own accounting and just get your processes in place and your marketing, and you're literally learning it all on the fly oftentimes.
That's what it feels like.
Yes. Yeah. But in year 3, I feel like something clicks. And you can start to take those weekends off. And that may not be the case, but I feel like I've heard it from a lot of people. And I reached that year 3 in 2018. I was like, okay, like this feels really good.
I love that.
My process is good. My clients are referring me to other clients, and things just started to kind of build in this engine. And that's when you don't necessarily have to, feast or famine anymore. And there's a little bit of like, okay, I can have a reprieve. I can start to, take a little bit more time for myself. It's funny because a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I want to work for myself. I'm not going to work nearly as much as I would at my corporate job. And you end up working 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's a key point, because a lot of times we have goals, right? And we don't think of the sacrifice that will entail. And all my clients, whenever they finalize their goals, I always ask them, what are you willing to sacrifice in order to accomplish this? Because it will make it easier when you have that in mind.
Right.
So for you, what did you sacrifice when you took, like that decision to be an entrepreneur?
Oh my God. My sanity?
I love it.
No, very seriously though, I feel like it was very emotionally hard.
Yeah.
It was very emotionally taxing. My husband, he was my boyfriend at the time, was incredibly supportive of me wanting me to, quit my job. And I had to lean on him for a lot of this, emotional and financial support because there were, again, some circumstances as to why I quit that, design job. And it wasn't necessarily like I had, built out this like financial runway. It was like, no, we got to do something about this toxic work environment. Right. So, okay. Will you remind me of your question? I feel like I just went off on a tangent.
Girl, I am listening at you more that I don't remember anymore. So what are the things that you sacrificed?
Oh, what I sacrificed. Okay. Yes. My sanity, in financial security. I feel like, I had this, 401k and health benefits and, all of the things that come with a salaried job. And I felt very secure in that financially, and just knowing that, okay, I would always be at work from 9 to 5, whatever it is. This, like, my routine was pretty consistent. And when you quit and go into something that is completely risky, you do sacrifice a lot of that routine and a lot of those like creature comforts, because you're out there putting yourself, out here for hire, essentially.
Over and over.
So I feel like my routine shifted a lot, and I had to sacrifice a lot of my time, and even time building relationships with my friends and family. I did really try my hardest to continue to be social, and it's hard because I'm an introvert as well. So
you don't.
Yes.
You're just perfect.
So being like putting on my sales hat and like trying to pitch myself to clients really drained my energy. And, of course, but as an entrepreneur, you have to be the one to put yourself out there. So I feel like I almost like tried to cocoon myself, because after trying to get the website up and running and figure out my pricing and all of these different elements and pitching myself, I'm like, I'm exhausted, so I didn't necessarily want to go out and like have drinks with friends or be as social. So that I think was challenging as well. Just sacrificing not only like a solid, steady paycheck, but your social life a little bit as you're building up your, your business. And I feel like that has actually, it always will come back as long as you make time and effort for that.
That is true. I always tell people it's not a matter of when, it's not a matter of if it's going to happen.
Yes.
It's a matter of when. As long as you put in the effort and you're walking the path,
Right.
It's going to happen.
Yeah. Because the first couple of years, I feel like our hustle, just in order for you to get this business up and running, and we're learning how to make a video today,
Totally.
You're just learning a lot of things on the fly, that a lot of your peers are probably not having to spend their time doing. Right. But you'll learn those new skill sets, and you'll feel more confident and comfortable in those things. You'll have more clarity in what you're doing, and then things will start to kind of slowly go back into your routine, whatever that is. And I agree, like whatever you make time for will always be there. Yeah. So I feel like there is such an expectation of hustle culture, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm worn out.
Girl, I take my breaks during the day. Right. I learned that.
Yeah, because you have to take care of yourself and pour into yourself before you can pour into your clients or customers too. So it doesn't have to be hustle every single day of the week. You can take time off as an entrepreneur, and that is really hard. So important. It's really hard because you're like, okay, I'm trading my time for dollars. So if I'm not using my time for being productive, then I'm not making money, right? And that can be really challenging, especially in those first couple of years, because you're like, this is how I need to make a living. So if I'm not working, you almost start to feel guilty. At least I did. I started to feel guilty for not being productive. But then I was burning myself out, and I experienced a massive burnout in 2018. And it was really hard.
It's a big lesson.
Yes. I know you and I bonded over that, just being able to take care of yourself, I think, is something you shouldn't sacrifice along the way.
I love that. I mean, one of the things that I've found while working these 2 months that I'm part of full-time entrepreneurship is that there is a lot of faith involved in the process. Right. Faith that the work you put on, that you'll get back in terms of finances or energy of clients. Right. How in those moments that were challenging for you in your path, where maybe you were losing a little bit of your faith, how did you keep yourself going?
Oh my gosh. Finding clients like you.
You're so sweet.
So it's really funny that you asked that, because I learned a technique. It's not really a technique, but like this system from my mother-in-law. So she has when she worked, she had this smile folder, and anytime she got a positive email from a client or someone who was really happy with the work that she had done, she saved it in this smile folder, essentially like an affirmation bucket. And I am queen of words of affirmation. That is my jam. So, there's often times where I would feel incredibly drained, or like you said, I would be losing faith. Like, no one needs me. No one, no one is having success with the work that I'm doing, or I'm a terrible logo designer, whatever it is. Right. Yes. Or I would compare myself, and still do to this day, to other entrepreneurs on the internet. Right. Yes. And so you can start to constantly compare yourself to others and think, okay, I'm not doing enough. I don't have the secret to, whatever it is your goal is. Yeah. I'm not hustling enough. Yeah. I'm not enough, whatever that is.
Whatever enough.
So then you start to doubt yourself and think like, okay, am I even good enough to do this anymore? Do people even need what it is that I'm serving? And then this has always been really helpful for me. I look back in that smile folder of all these emails, and I've saved one from you. I've saved one from all of my clients that send me like, thank you so much for helping me, put myself out there, whatever it is. And then you just start to remind yourself like, okay, what you're doing matters. Yeah. And I don't know, it just kind of fills up that faith bucket a little bit more. Like, okay, this is still worth the risk. I don't need to go get a second job or, whatever it is. And I mean, that's for me, that's the words of affirmation that I feel like I need whenever I kind of lose that steam and like I'm really down on myself. But sometimes you just have to like put yourself in like we did before, just ground yourself and think back through all of the times that it did work out.
And it's funny that you mentioned that also, because I have experienced days that, because I had a super busy day, I'm just like drained at night, and I start getting even irritated, or I start distorting the reality in my mind because I'm just so tired from the whole day. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, and this and that. And I've just found that going to bed early, like at 8 p.m. I mean, I go to bed at that time anyway, but going to bed early. And one of the things that I do is try not to interact more much with people whenever I hit that mental state that I'm like, okay, I don't have energy for anything else. Right. Going to bed, and the next day I wake up like happy.
It's amazing what happens when you take care of yourself.
That's me. And I've learned that more and more, because even when I'm in that mental state and I interact with someone, I mean, I'm irritated already. I don't have more energy to do.
No.
My thing is like, I gotta go to, when I am noticing that behavior in myself, I'm like, gotta go to bed. Rest.
Yes.
So
I am so impressed that you have already learned that about yourself 2 months in, because I feel like it could be, it could be really hard to be able to take care of yourself in this season, because there's always something you can learn, right? Like we just talked about, you need to work on your website or whatever it is. Like there's always something on your plate. Actually, there's like always 30 things on your plate, and being able to know, okay, I've reached my limit. I need to, go take a bubble bath, or, eat some chocolate cake, or go go on a run, or or whatever it is, go to bed early, and be able to just like decompress and approach the next day with a fresh set of eyes. Like your problem may not be solved, but you may have more faith in yourself that you can solve it once you sleep.
It makes a huge difference. Sleep is really, it's a biological need. Okay, just sleep.
Exactly.
Sleep and rest. I love it. So one of the things you mentioned is finances. I feel that's a topic that whenever you make a big transition, like the one I made or you have made, a lot of people have that in their mind to ask, but no one asks. It's like a taboo, like, oh my God, don't ask anyone about money. So you mentioned a couple of things on how you navigated finances. What was your mindset around finances when you started your journey, and now that you have been in your journey for like years? Literally.
Oh my gosh. It is a roller coaster of emotions because, I feel like when I first went out on my own the first couple of times, like I'm paying off student loans. I've got, at this point, I was not as financially responsible as I am now. Thank you to my husband, who like we have a very good financial relationship, but prior to our relationship, like I had credit card debt, from being a broke college kid, and things like that. And I think that was part of why like jumping into entrepreneurship felt even more risky, because I had this burden of, things that I was, accruing and had to pay for. And I do feel like having a job or a couple of jobs in between my entrepreneurship career helped me get back on track with my finances, and helped me save for retirement and like build up those things that would be a little bit more challenging to do if you're just jumping into entrepreneurship right out the gate, so I've got, some money set aside, which helped me feel more financially ready to jump into this risk of hopefully my, talents will get me paid,
and now they do. So
but there's definitely been seasons of, wondering if I should get a part-time job, because I'm like doubting myself and my abilities. And then you look at that smile folder and you're like, okay, and then check your bank account and you're like, okay, we have, maybe 2 months of runway. And then you start to kind of see, okay, maybe in the next week or two, I really need to network and build my relationships to be able to get some more clients in the door so that I can do this for a little bit more of a length of time. And then the more that you do that and put yourself out there, I feel like not necessarily this like woo-woo, the money is, you're attracting this money, but I do feel like, money goes where your energy flows,
totally.
And at this point, I've been in this season of entrepreneurship for 6 years. And I know now that I need like a minimum of like $5,000 in savings so that I've got money to pay Uncle Sam for tax time, or whatever it is.
Totally.
And just have a threshold of my operating income. I think knowing your numbers is incredibly important, and knowing what is a good investment. So let's say you're paying $30 a month for your website hosting, and you've got, $5 a month for Gmail, and you're paying an accountant or whatever it is. Like, you've got all of these different, tools that you need to run your business. Add all those up, and then that's at least your minimum operating budget. This is even before you pay yourself, right? So you have to think, okay, do I really need all these tools, or can I scale back and maybe use a free tool to, run my project management system or what have you. So kind of making those decisions based on what you can bring in per client or per month is a great way to start.
Yeah.
And you can always add on or delete things that you're not using. Like for me, I'm currently paying like $20 a month for an email service, and I haven't sent out emails since June of last year. But I'm like, maybe I will send out an email, So, but I'm at a place where I can continue currently to take that $20 a month hit, and it's not a big deal. But if you would ask me that 5 years ago, I'd be like, I'm never touching email marketing or whatever just don't be smart with your money.
I love that.
And you don't have to jump into everything that everyone else is doing just because you feel like you need it. So I'm probably actually going to delete my email, my email newsletter, not my Gmail. I still have my normal email, but I'm not, it's not necessarily good use of resources. So you can, run lean at some points, and you don't have to invest in everything that everyone is doing.
That is so important.
Yeah.
I mean, I always tell people, and I learned this with all these journeys, keep it simple at the beginning, because you're doing everything like invoicing, website.
Right.
You don't have extra money to spare a lot of times, right? And one of the things that I did even before going into my entrepreneurship journey, I reassessed literally all the subscriptions.
Oh, yeah.
The gym membership that I was paying, ClassPass. So now I literally use my Sweat app to work out.
That's amazing.
Yes.
And I see you posting that all the time.
I'm always posting because right now I would love to have a gym membership or go to classes, and I recognize, that right now is not the time, and you gotta prioritize. That's one of the lessons that I've learned, because in this path you're always learning and reinventing yourself.
Yes.
Which is the most important part.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. Going through all of your personal finances and just saying, okay, what can I cut back on? What am I paying for that I'm not actually using, or what can I reprioritize? And maybe set aside a number of money that you want to invest in your business. Say, okay, I'm going to invest $10,000, and that for me is a comfortable amount. It will pay for X, Y, and Z, for the first 6 months or for the first year. And that way you've got a number set aside for that, business that you're going to pour into, and you're not draining yourself personally as well.
Yes.
Because I feel like it takes some time to get to the point where you can actually start paying yourself as a business owner. Because a lot of times the money that you bring in from the work that you do is going to reinvest back into your business.
Yes.
Into upgrading your branding or, getting that, e-commerce website up and running, or a marketing strategy, things that will help you bring in more clients. You may have to sacrifice paying yourself for a while. And I still don't pay myself very much.
But
it's like that. When a big client comes in and I'm like, okay, I've got, this amount of money set aside. Okay, I can give myself $1,000 bonus this month or what have you to kind of help pay for, personal things. But
I love it.
I've been a sole proprietor. I don't have an LLC, so it's just,
I don't think,
yeah. So it's just me. At some point I may, upgrade that to an LLC just for a little bit more, protection. Yeah. But I'm not doing a lot of work that would really require me to need like that liability. So I just schedule reoccurring payments to myself from my business checking into my personal checking every single week. So at least I know that money is coming in and I'm like not even thinking about it. I do the same with my like any money that I need to pay for sales tax or my income tax at the end of the year. So I've got everything, like all of my accounts are in the same bank. So I just transfer like $100 a week or whatever the amount needs to be from my business checking into my business savings.
And you don't have a business account.
I do.
That's something, I mean, right now I'm just running on personal. So that's something I'm definitely
it's something I would absolutely recommend because once you go to, like file your taxes and it is, to separate out your Netflix subscription from your website subscription and all of the meals that you may have for work versus personal, and just being able to see what your business is bringing in.
Yes.
Because if everything is together, it's really hard because everything kind of blurs the lines.
Yes.
So I highly recommend anybody going to get
ASAP.
Yes, go to get a business checking and a business savings. So for me, my business savings is not my money.
Okay.
I'm not saving for the business necessarily. This is just for taxes. Yeah. So I know that I need about $5,000 to $7,000 in taxes in savings at this point in my like income threshold. So I make sure to, pull money out about 30% of any invoice that comes in. I pull that and I just put it into my business savings. And I tell myself that is not my money. So when I look at like my total income, I just subtract that, business savings account. And that's how much money I have in my total possession. But anything in that account, I'm like, no, it's not mine. Can't see it, can't touch it. But that way I'm not overspending on something that is meant for state sales tax or income tax.
That's really smart.
Because you can get yourself into a position, especially like as a first time entrepreneur, you're like, oh my gosh, I owe $700 or $3,000, for the income that I brought into my business, but I don't have that money saved. And take a lesson from me. I did that my first year because I didn't understand that I needed to be setting aside 30%, just to cover everything, on top of having to pay, state sales tax here in Texas. So it's just really helpful to build in that cushion so that that you're safe when it comes to, April of that following year. So
I love it. Oh my God. So many good tips and insights. And I'm selfishly here absorbing all the information. Like, I need to do that.
Yes.
This has increased, but in a good sense.
Yes.
So now that you have been in this entrepreneurship journey for a couple of years, what was something that you were scared of before that you're not scared of anymore? Or maybe a perspective that has changed on you from what you believed before versus now?
Wow.
That's what comes to mind.
I would say I feel like I finally know what my time is worth.
Okay. Ooh,
and
I like that.
There, of course, the very first few years that I was in business, you were taking on every single job that comes your way if you need to, because you're learning how much to charge or what you want in an ideal client. I've taken on projects in my early entrepreneurship days that I would never take on now because there were so many red flags. A client wouldn't want to sign my contract, or they wouldn't want to put down a deposit, or they wouldn't want to go through the process that I had set up as protection for both my client and myself.
Yes.
But I needed the money, right? So I'm like, I will gladly sacrifice or give you this giant discount when you're not respecting my time, because I wasn't fully aware at that point of the value that I was providing for my clients.
important.
Yes. And that takes time and confidence.
I'm learning that as I go.
Yes. It takes time.
Yeah.
And I feel like it takes going through several different experiences with clients and winning and losing jobs, or, going through a breakup with the client even, where you're like, okay, this is actually not a good relationship. There are too many red flags, or I'm conceding too many things or too many parts of my process to give you what you feel like you need. And having the client kind of run the relationship, whereas instead of allowing you to be the guide of the relationship can also be challenging.
Totally.
But all of that, I feel like, allows you to start to understand, okay, this is actually how I want to run my client project or my relationship. This is how I want to be seen as an expert. And that takes time and confidence to start to understand. And then you're able to start charging more. And you're building the signature process because you've experimented, essentially. Use the first couple of years to figure out what works, what doesn't work, and just shift and change. So I feel like I've gained a lot of confidence and clarity in knowing what I will and will not do. But I feel like a lot of that also comes with just, maturity and having more time and projects under your belt. And just knowing what you want to do with your business.
I love that. That is such, and you reminded me of something that one of my spiritual teachers says. He's like, I don't want any clients. I want great clients. You don't want to take into everything, but you want the right people to partner up with you, because it's a process. It's a journey.
Right. Exactly.
So good, Lynsey. I love it. So there are a lot of people out there. That maybe they don't have the clarity we have right now, which, as we said, it took me 8 years to take this decision. It has taken you going different ways to know what is the way for you. And we're still trying to figure it out.
I may shift my business in another 5 years. Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah. So there are a lot of people that in their gut, they feel something, but maybe they don't have the clarity. And if they have the clarity, they are afraid of taking action.
Totally understand.
Maybe they are fearful of success or fearful of failure.
Right.
What would you say to those people based on your experience?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Experiment. And
I love that.
And try, I always think, especially in times of COVID where, there's so many people who are, not making it past a certain age because of this, virus. I just continue to think, like, would I be regretting this decision, or would I have this regret if I was in my last moments, And I know that sounds really grim, but I recently had a death in the family, and I just, it was a very unexpected.
I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Thank you. It was just a very unexpected, death. And I continue to think, like, I don't want to be in that position regretting not taking that leap, and I know that feels a little dark, but I just continue to think, like, okay, what is your life's purpose? Maybe your life's purpose is to do something that right now it feels terrifying.
Yes.
Oh
God. Any change.
Yeah. And I always think, like, okay, what is the worst that could happen?
Exactly.
You get another job. Right? What is the worst that could happen? Someone tells you that you're taking too much of a risk. Well, I feel like most of the people in your life, they will tell you that they're nervous for you, or that they're really scared, and oh my gosh, how could you be quitting your job? It's because they're projecting. They're projecting their own fear onto you.
Yes.
That doesn't mean that what you're doing is not a good idea, or that what you're doing is not something that everyone else needs, or a certain niche group of people needs from you. Maybe it's just because the people that love you, want to protect you, and they don't want you to feel pain from taking the unnecessary risk.
Yeah, they don't know better.
Right,
in their life experience.
Yeah, it's not a risk that they would take. So they may not be as supportive because they don't want to see you struggle. right? But that's not a reason that you shouldn't try.
Yes.
I feel like
listen and so important.
But I feel like when it comes to clarity, you may not have clarity for a while, because I still second guess myself at least 2 or 3 times a week.
It's a journey, right?
It's so true.
It's a process.
It is so true. I'm 34 and I've been on my own for 6 years at this point, and then off and on prior to that. And I still am like, should I just work for somebody else?
Yeah.
But that's just the fear setting in that, we are not good enough, or there's this imposter syndrome. So for me, I try to not consume content from anyone that is making me feel less than. So I've actually taken a pretty significant Instagram break in the last couple of months in Facebook, because I was feeling myself second guessing everything that I was doing, because I was not giving myself the space to have my own clarity. Because a lot of what you see on social media is people telling you that you have to hustle more, or buy this course to unlock this secret.
Million followers.
Yes, exactly. And while those things are great, and some of those courses may be incredibly helpful. I mean, I've also invested in courses. Yeah. But there comes a point where I feel like you need to just dive in, take the risk. And like we talked about earlier, maybe that's 30 minutes a day. Maybe it's, okay, I really want to pursue art. So start an Etsy shop, carve out time, an hour or 2 a week, or 10 hours a week if you have the flexibility. Try to make those sacrifices. Maybe you're not watching as much Netflix, or maybe while you're watching Netflix you're also knitting, or whatever it is that you're passionate about, and start to carve out that time for the life that you want.
It's so important, because I think technology has allowed us to become entrepreneurs from one second to the other.
Oh my gosh, yes.
We can monetize on many, we can be creative, right?
Yes.
And resourceful.
Right.
And I think, like you said, you can be in your corporate job and doing like a side hustle. It doesn't have to be all in, but experiment. I just love that word. Experiment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much,
Absolutely.
Lynsey. This has been so full of knowledge and information.
Good.
Just energized and ready to keep going.
You're the
I
best.
love that. So experiment.
Yes.
Anything else in terms of purpose, of clarity, anything else you want to tell the viewers as we conclude this interview?
So, just thinking about having clarity, that will take time, but I feel like you know what your purpose is.
Yes, right?
I
always said that. You always know.
Maybe you have this incredible purpose in the role that you have in corporate, or as a parent. Yeah. But you can also have multiple purposes. Like you can serve this particular, role in your life, and you can also carve out time for something for you. And I think that if there's anything that is just gnawing at you and you're constantly thinking about, like for some reason I go to bed every night thinking that I'm going to run the next day. Have I run the next day? No. But I feel like I'm constantly thinking, I lay my head on the pillow and I'm like, you know what? I really think I should run. And I think for me, that is not necessarily a purpose calling me, because I'm not a runner, but I think it's my mind and my body telling me that I need to invest more energy back into myself. So if you're constantly having something come up like, oh my gosh, I really wish that I could learn how to take better photos, or really feel passionate about helping people get to that next level in their career, or enter anything, whatever it is that you want to do, underwater basket weaving, literally anything. If you are passionate about it, you will find other people who are also passionate about it and will either hire you or pay you or buy your things. And I think it's worth investing back into yourself.
I love that. And I think that voice, that inner voice that you were mentioning, right? The more we ignore it, sometimes the louder it gets.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So, like you said, following your gut, experimenting, that's a key thing.
And always think about what's the worst that could happen.
Yeah, totally.
So like, okay, if the worst that could happen is that you start this Etsy shop and no one buys, that's okay.
Yeah.
Did you have fun trying to figure it out? I hope so. You know?
And also the feedback, right? There is no failure, only feedback. So no one is buying what is that telling you. Can you try different ways, different things to get people buy?
Absolutely.
So it's experimentation process, like you said.
Yeah. And your goal and purpose may shift some. You know, like I said, I never wanted to photograph weddings. I ultimately photographed about 60 weddings.
Which is a lot.
Over the course of like 5 years, I learned a lot from that. You know, I learned how to work with clients and make them feel comfortable. And then I've translated that into my design process and make sure that I'm taking care of my clients along the way. So everything that you do through this experimentation process will go on to serve you in some way. Maybe it's not a direct correlation, like, okay, I'm now this amazing world-renowned wedding photographer. That may not be the case, right? I'm definitely not. But, you know, I still have this great skill set, and I've learned a lot of just, you know, interpersonal relationship, you know, tools through that process, being creative, like photography is a creative outlet, and I just translated that into the work that I do today. And then in between there, I thought that I was going to design wedding invitations. I even went to a bridal show and had my own booth at a bridal show just for wedding invitations. And it was great and beautiful, but it wasn't the final stop on my journey. And what I'm doing currently, which is branding for entrepreneurs, is what I have been doing for a number of years.
And you do it so amazingly
well. Thank you. And I love that. But maybe 5 to 10 years from now, maybe my journey takes another stop. You know, this may or may not be my final stop. This is currently what I'm like incredibly passionate about. And it's where I feel like I can do the most transformative work for my clients. But as my clients grow, my business ultimately shifts and grows as well, you know? So I feel like don't ever be afraid to try, to experiment, to continue investing in yourself, because you're the only one that is going to make that a priority.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here. And one last thing, please, will you share your info, where to get back, find you on social media, your website, anything?
Absolutely.
She's amazing,
Thank you. She's the best client ever. So I am Lynsey Creative on everything, and it's Lynsey Creative, and you can find me on lynseycreative.com, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I have one video on TikTok, so maybe by the time this post, I'll have more than one, you know. But yeah, I'm just you know on the gram. So
I love it. Thank you so much for being here, for being part of this project, to continue empowering people to really create their reality.
Oh, well, thank you for making space for this. So this has been incredible.
I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Oh, yes.
Thank you so much for listening at With Clarity and Purpose. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. Sharing is caring. Please share with your friends and family so we can continue building an empowered community together. I'll see you next week.